Welcome back. Unless you've been living under a rock, then you know about last week's terrorist attacks on Paris. As of Tuesday this week, 26 states have decided not to accept any more refugees from Syria for fear that jihadists will infiltrate our country and perform similar acts of terror on American soil. Jim, how do you feel about that?
So, I think I've been living under a rock. This is the first I've heard of that. No, actually, the Paris thing is a terrible thing, and I've seen a lot of people on Facebook with the French colors on their picture. I didn't do that because
I don't do it for anybody. I didn't do it for that.
I subscribe to the theory that really doesn't help. Having said that, we need to help.
No.
The world needs to help, and I hope, our president notwithstanding, I hope that the rest of the world is going to come together and really put the hurting on these people, because that's what they need. And we do have the technology to find them, and we do have the technology to kill them, and that's what we need to do.
Well, and I'm going to do what I usually do on topics of foreign policy and paralyze myself through overanalysis. Yes, when it comes to ISIS, and I think this is the one criticism that I have for the administration, and it's been the policy in Syria from the beginning, is the fact that we paralyze ourselves for fear of taking the wrong step. And sometimes making a bad decision is better than making no decision. And aside from that, the fact that we lay these artificial red lines that we then ignored completely has completely destroyed our credibility. There is a point that is being made that I agree with, which is that ultimately the solution to terrorism is not their violence. But when it comes to ISIS, we need to take these guys out. And we don't need to putz around doing it. We need to put enough boots on the ground to make everybody within 20 years remember that it was a really bad idea to do what they did. And that is going to actually help us alleviate the crisis in the Middle East, the refugee crisis and everything else. And in the end, Assad needs to go, because he's part of the reason that led to the creation of ISIS in the first place. I think, hindsight is always 20/20. We never should have invaded Iraq in 2003. It was a mistake, and that definitely led to the creation of ISIS. If Saddam was still in power, there would be no ISIS. These guys would be in a prison someplace, and they would never see the light of day. We invaded Iraq, and then the second biggest mistake we made was the fact that we completely disbanded the Iraqi army, a professional army, and we started out from scratch with something that doesn't even have the chutzpah to, with 10-1 superiority, take Ramadi, which is a stone's throws away from Baghdad. It's an embarrassment. Now, the Kurds are doing very well, and I think the reason you're seeing this uptick in terrorist attacks right now is because the Kurds took Sinjar. So that basically cuts their supply route, their major supply route. If you look at the expansion of ISIS, it's centered around roads, because in the desert, that's how you get around. So we cut the major road between the Syrian portion of ISIS-controlled territory and the Iraqi-controlled portion of ISIS territory. So now they're having to direct all their arms shipment and everything else on secondary roads to the desert, which makes them targets for drones and for everything else.
So if you listen to any of the conservative talk shows, the soundbite that they're running this week, as much as some of the things around the Paris attacks, is the John Kerry soundbite about he understood Charlie Hebdo because that had a purpose, or that he could, or there was a purpose, or whatever, however he phrased that. The point they're trying to make is that they're suggesting that he thought that was okay, which I don't believe.
No.
But what was he trying to say there, Bob?
Honestly, I don't know. I can't.
I mean, I really don't believe that he thought that was okay.
I think what he did is he opened his mouth when he shouldn't have, and
without thinking about what he was
right,
saying.
And it just it rolled out, and it rolled out wrong, and there, once those words escape your lips, you can't bring them back. But one of the biggest fears I think that people have right now, and we could talk about last Friday all we want to in Paris, but last night in Paris also, they went after some of these terrorists where they knew where they were, and a woman blew herself up with a bomb vest, and luckily no French police were killed or anything. But the point is that these people aren't going to stop. It's their job, as long as they live and breathe, to wage warfare against anybody who's not of their faith.
Okay,
Yeah.
somebody who's willing, and I'm sorry, go ahead, Emily.
And, I mean, there are really ugly people in this world. There are just
Oh,
really
yeah.
downright nasty people in this world. I think right now we're all walking a fine line on trying to figure out who is good and who is evil. And I think that this whole thing is brought to light. I mean, you can get on social media and see the comments that are being made about the entire Muslim religion and about the refugees. And it's just awful. You know, you can't, yeah, where do you draw the line when there are women and, of course, there are children being trained to hurt other children, but you can't generalize either. Like I keep saying, we can't bring refugees over because they're going to hurt us. Yeah, there may be bad people in that crew, but there are also people who genuinely need help. And we're the United States of America. We have always helped. Like,
Well, and I think you bring up a very good point, and I think that, you know, the headlines that are coming back full circle to the actual topic that we're talking about, the headlines that, you know, all these governors are putting their foot down. First of all, governors have no authority to dictate refugee or taking in refugees. That's purely a federal function. Second of all, they're feel-good measures, right? So they want to get a headline saying that our governor is blocking these refugees from coming in. The reality of the matter is, we don't have to bring people in to have terrorist attacks. We have plenty of homegrown terrorists. All these shooters. And let's think about the fact that before 9/11. The worst terrorist attack on American soil was not carried out by Muslims. That was Oklahoma
Right.
City. So you can't, there is, in terrorism, by its very nature, it's asymmetric warfare, meaning that there is no true deterrent aside from intelligence. So you cannot protect yourself against a terrorist attack. All you can do is try to preempt it.
But in trying to preempt it, do you think it's okay to bring the wolves into the hen house?
Well, I think our national character is to take in refugees. What we need to do is to make sure that we have proper screening. We don't have the same problem that Europe has, which is there's an ocean between us and them. So in order for them to get here, they don't take a boat and come across a small body of water. They have to go through screening and the entire process. We need to beef those processes up rather than saying, we're not going to take these people in.
absolutely. You can't just say, no,
Well, I like
we're
actually.
not going to help.
Yeah, actually, I like your idea, which is put boots on the ground and put boots on the ground in Syria, and you send in 3,000 armed forces service personnel, and you cut off. I mean, you cut out a swath of land, and the refugees can stay there because they'll be protected.
Yep.
You know, and then when ISIS is finally eliminated and Assad, and hopefully Putin realizes that Assad's not his buddy, and Assad is gone, then things can return to normal.
Yep. I absolutely agree, and I think you're going to have the last word on that, Bob.
Again,
I was
here we
pushing
go.
for that. I was watching the timer. No, but
Next up, Maryland has been compared and ranked against our neighbor states regarding issues of corruption. Stay with us to learn what the panel thinks about it.